Welcome to this short introduction to American literature. Here is Navdeep Kaur, PG Department of English, Culture Studies and Foreign Languages, GSS DGS Khalsa College Patiala. Through the present PPT, I would discuss American literature up to Colonial Period. The rest will be explained in the part 2 of the PPT. This lecture is meant for the students of BA Honours in English, 3rd semester. Literature always reflects historical events, wars, values, and culture of that particular society to which it belongs. And like every society has history, its literature has corresponding history too. Even though American literature of United States of America can be best understood in its historical context, still some of its common characteristics are: first, American literature as compared to Indian and English literature is very young. In India, our first literary text was written around 7,000 years ago. First English text around 1,000 years ago, but first American text just 500 years ago. So see how young it is. History of American literature began with settlement of Europeans in America in early 17th century. It's not that America was uninhabited till this age. People were already living in America for around 2000 years before it was rediscovered by Christopher Columbus in 1492. These people were called Red Indians or Native Americans, but they knew no idea of written literature. Their literature was much in the form of oral chants and folk songs. They passed these orally from one generation to another. After the colonization in early 17th century, Red Indians were brutally murdered and suppressed by the colonizers. And from here begins the true history of written American literature. Secondly, right from colonization to the present, the American society has remained a society of immigrants who had come from different European countries and settled in America permanently. They had come not from European countries, from other continents also. So this society has no set tradition and settled life. Therefore, they have individualist culture. Individualist culture, one tends to focus on one's own goals and desires rather than acting upon community wishes like we as Indians do most of the time. This tendency of individualism is much reflected in American writings. They tend to emphasize individualism as well as democracy. If we read Tennessee Williams' The Glass Menagerie, we will understand how individualism runs in the blood of Americans. The drama is about mother's struggle to bring up her family without her husband. More than that, it is about the son who has no regard for mother's expectations and who finds his own way of living. Here I need to mention the concept of American dream, which is a kind of a unique characteristic of American society as well as its literature. American dream is an ideal of American life, wherein anyone who wishes to get success of any kind, whether it is material wealth or spiritual peace or fame, can achieve it through their own efforts and hard work, because America provides the right environment for that. Classless society, no red tapeism, political equality for all, opportunities for upward social mobility, liberty, etc. Do we wish it to? A society where there is no corruption, no community pressure, no caste, no delay in government services, equality among all? Well, that's American dream. But why we use the word American as adjective to this dream? Because America is said to have proximity to such ideal society. Millions have settled there and achieved their dreams. Until 20th century, most of the writings, American writings, glorified this dream. They presented it in positive light through the stories of young, hard-working boys who became rich and famous. Benjamin Franklin's autobiography is one such example. But after 20th century, writers became much skeptical of it because of the two world war, great economic depression that engulfed US economy, and of course due to racism also. In Dry September, which is a short story by William Faulkner, presents this dark side of American society. It is a criticism of American dream that people had earlier. But now the society is full of social evils like racism, discrimination, and injustice. It has become a distant dream. Another important feature of American literature is that it tends to disregard traditional writing styles and themes, particularly that of England. It was in resonance with their resistance of anything that is colonial. American writers pioneered many genres like detective stories, science fiction, and techniques like imagism. Edgar Allan Poe created mysterious settings and odd themes in his stories involving animals also. He invented genre of detective stories. Walt Whitman, who translated Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali, is said to be the first poet to use free verse, without any meter, without any rhyme scheme. The literature of America can best be understood in the following historical contexts: Colonial Period, Revolutionary Period, Early National Period, Romantic Period, Realistic Period, Naturalistic Period, American Modern Period, and Contemporary Period. First of all, we will focus on Colonial Period, literature of Colonial Period. Written American literature truly begins with the settlement of Europeans in so-called New World. In 1607, the Britishers reached America, landed on present-day Virginia, and called it New England. They pushed Spanish people to the south of America. It was a time when there was a clash between Catholics and Protestants in Europe. Protestants were in favor of reforming the church, with Martin Luther King and Calvin as their leaders. But since army and other public offices were under the influence of Catholics, Protestants were suppressed and persecuted. In order to avoid arrests and murders, these Protestants from European countries escaped to this newfound land, America. America was at that time a big forest. Most of these colonizers who settled in New England were Protestants, and they created religious literature. William Bradford published the Plymouth Plantation, which was full of religious topics. In the middle colonies, the Quaker, another sect of Christianity, were settled. They had no strong belief in Christianity. Most of these people were rationalists, and they wrote on secular social themes like slavery, abolition of slavery. William Penn was a prominent writer. In the South cities, agrarian people were settled because they had big pieces of land. They loved to keep slaves. The literature was basically on histories of state. Cotton Mather from these colonies wrote History of Maryland. One more important writer who is worth mentioning is Annie Bradstreet. She was perhaps the earliest woman writer in America who wrote poems in English. The literature in the colonial era was diverse because culturally America was divided into three segments: the New England, Middle Colonies, and the South cities. This cultural division is prominently dealt in William Faulkner's short story Dry September. The rest of the lecture will be covered in the next PPT. Thank you so much.